The lantern cast dancing shadows across the barn, and as Jake Morrison stepped through the doorway, his boots crunching on scattered hay, he'd heard something, a rustling that wasn't mice or wind. 3 pairs of eyes stared back at him from the far corner, wide with terror and defiance. A woman's voice, barely a whisper. "Please, mister, don't turn us away." Jake raised the lantern higher. A young mother, maybe 25, clutched 2 small children against her threadbare dress. A boy of 8 or 9 stood protectively in front of them, his fists clenched despite his trembling. They were bone-thin, dirt-streaked, and desperate. "How long you been hiding in my barn?" Jake's voice was gruffier than he intended. 2 days, the woman said. "We'll leave at first light. I swear it." The Morrison Ranch stretched across 1,500 acres of Colorado high country, where winter came early and stayed late. Jake had built it from nothing after the war, every fence post driven by his own hands, every head of cattle earned through backbreaking work. At 42, he lived alone by choice. Neighbors were sparse, and that's how he liked it. The woman's dress had once been blue. Now it was the color of dust and desperation. Her children pressed closer as Jake stepped forward, the boy ready to fight despite being outweighed by 200 pounds. The little girl clutching a corn-husk doll with half its hair missing. "What's your name?" Jake asked. "Mary Hutchins. These are my children, Samuel and Emma." Her chin lifted with the last shred of pride she possessed. "My husband died in a mine collapse near Leadville. The company, they put us out." Jake had seen it before. Mining companies that promised everything and delivered graves. Widows with nowhere to turn. Children who learned hunger before they learned their letters. The smart thing would be to point them toward town, maybe give them $1 and directions to the church. But something in the boy's eyes stopped him. A fierce protectiveness that reminded Jake of himself at that age, standing over his own mother's grave while creditors circled like vultures. Outside, the October wind rattled the barn doors. Winter was coming, and these 3 wouldn't survive it on the road. "All 3 of you," Jake said slowly, "come with me." Mary Hutchins stared at him as if he had spoken in tongues. "Come with you where?" "To the house." Jake turned toward the door. "Storm's brewing. You'll freeze out here." "We can't pay you nothing," she said quickly. "We got no money, didn't ask for money." The boy, Samuel, stepped forward. "What do you want then?" Jake studied the kid's suspicious face. Smart boy. Probably had to grow up fast after his father died. "Supper's getting cold. You can tell me your story over beans and cornbread." At the mention of food, little Emma's stomach growled audibly. Mary's face flushed with embarrassment, but Jake pretended not to notice. The house was simple but warm, rough-hewn logs chinked tight against the wind, a stone fireplace that could heat the whole front room, furniture built to last rather than impress. Mary hesitated at the threshold as if crossing into another world. "Sit," Jake said, ladling beans into bowls. He cut thick slices of cornbread, added butter that Emma stared at like it was made of gold. They ate in silence, broken only by the crack of burning logs. Jake watched the children devour their food with the desperate efficiency of the truly hungry. Mary ate slower, her eyes never leaving his face, trying to read his intentions. "The mine company took our cabin when Thomas died," she said finally. "Said the debt was more than his wages. We've been walking for 3 weeks, heading somewhere, anywhere. No family? Thomas was all we had." Samuel looked up from his empty bowl. "Mama says there's work in Denver." "Maybe," Jake said. "Long way from here, though. Winter's no time to be traveling with young ones." Mary's hands trembled as she set down her spoon. "I won't let my children starve, Mr. Morrison. Whatever it takes." Jake heard the steel beneath her exhaustion. This woman would do anything, to keep her children alive. The thought of what anything might mean in a frontier town made his jaw tighten. Through the window, he glimpsed riders in the distance. 3 men on horseback, moving slow and deliberate across his south pasture. Too dark to make out faces, but their posture spoke of purpose, bad purpose. Jake stood, moving to the window. The riders had stopped near his property line, their horses stamping in the cold air. One pointed toward the house. "You expecting company?" Mary asked, fear sharpening her voice. Before Jake could answer, hoofbeats drummed across the yard. Someone pounded on the door, hard, insistent, official. "Jake Morrison, open up! This is Sheriff Kellaway!" Jake's blood went cold. Tom Kellaway was a company man through and through. He wore a badge, but his loyalty belonged to whoever paid best. And lately, that was the Consolidated Mining Corporation. Mary's face went white. They found us. Back door, Jake whispered. Take the children and... I know you got them Hutchins fugitives in there, Kellaway shouted. Company says they stole property before they ran. You harboring thieves, Morrison. Samuel's young face twisted with fury. We ain't thieves, they're the thieves. Mary clamped a hand over her son's mouth, but it was too late. Kellaway's laugh was ugly as winter wind. Heard that, boy. You're coming back to Leadville to face justice. Jake stepped to the door, his hand resting on his holstered Colt. Through the gap in the curtains, he counted 4 men, Kellaway and 3 company gunmen, professional killers wearing badges of convenience. What property? Jake called out. Mining equipment, tools, company housing fixtures, theft. There's a hanging offense in these parts. Jake's mind raced. He'd heard stories about Consolidated's tactics. When workers died, the company seized everything, claiming unpaid debts. Widows who protested found themselves accused of theft, their children sold into indenture to pay fabricated debts. You got a warrant, Kellaway? Don't need one for known fugitives. Open up, or we'll burn you out. Through the window, Jake saw one of the gunmen uncapping a coal oil can. These men hadn't come to arrest anyone. They had come to silence witnesses and eliminate problems. Mary and her children would disappear into company work camps, and Jake would be left to explain their deaths. Please, Mary whispered, don't let them take my babies. Emma started crying, soft, hiccuping sobs that cut through Jake like broken glass. Samuel tried to comfort his sister while watching the door with adult fear in his child's eyes. Jake's ranch represented 20 years of blood and sweat, everything he'd built, everything he'd fought for. But looking at these 3 broken souls, he realized some things mattered more than property. Back window, he said quietly. There's a root cellar behind the woodshed. Take the children and hide. Whatever happens, don't come out until morning. What about you? Jake checked his rifle, made sure it was loaded. I'm going to have a conversation with the sheriff about proper legal procedures. Outside, Kellaway's patience was running thin. Last chance, Morrison. Jake met Mary's eyes one final time. In them, he saw a mother's desperate love and a woman's quiet strength. Whatever happened next, these children deserved a chance to grow up free. He walked to the door and lifted the latch. Evening, Tom. Jake stepped in onto his porch, rifle cradled casually in his arms. Mighty late for social calls. Kellaway sat his horse like a man who had never worked an honest day, soft around the middle despite his hard eyes. Cut the pleasantries, Morrison. Hand over the Hutchins woman and her brats. Don't know what you're talking about. Their tracks lead right to your barn. You hiding company property. That makes you an accessory. Jake's gaze swept the 4 men. Professional killers, but nervous in the way of bullies facing unexpected resistance. They had expected a simple pickup, not a standoff with a man who had survived 3 years fighting Apaches. What property exactly did a dead miner's widow steal? Mining tools, copper fittings, enough to buy her way to California. Kellaway's smile was reptilian. Of course, she probably promised you a cut, didn't she? Behind him, Jake heard the soft scrape of the back door. Good. Mary was getting her children to safety. He needed to buy them time. You know what I think, Tom? I think Consolidated's books don't add up, and they need someone to blame for their missing profits. Careful, Morrison. That sounds like sedition talk. Sounds like truth talk to me. One of the gunmen shifted in his saddle, hand drifting toward his pistol. Jake's rifle barrel dipped slightly in his direction, not quite threatening, but unmistakably ready. Here's what's going to happen, Jake said quietly. You're going to turn around and ride back to whoever sent you. Tell them Jake Morrison's ranch is off limits to company business. Big talk for a man facing 4 guns. 4 guns operated by men who ain't never been shot at. By someone shooting back. Jake's voice carried the calm certainty of experience. Question is, which one of you wants to find out if I'm faster than I am old? The standoff stretched like a held breath. Kellaway's horse stamped nervously, sensing its rider's uncertainty. The sheriff had built his reputation terrorizing widows and miners' families. Armed confrontations with war veterans weren't his specialty. Then, from inside the house, came the soft sound of Emma's crying. Kellaway's grin returned. Sounds like your guests ain't left yet. Jake's finger found his rifle's trigger. That's my niece, brother's kid, visiting from Denver. Your brother's been dead 10 years. Half-brother, different mothers. Jake's lie came smooth as whiskey. You calling me a liar, Tom? The sheriff's confidence wavered. Jake Morrison was known throughout the territory as a man whose word was iron. If he said the child was his niece, but the company wanted results, not excuses. Prove it, Kellaway said. Bring the girl out. Let us see her. Jake's blood turned to ice. Emma's resemblance to Mary was unmistakable. Same dark hair, same delicate features. One look would expose everything. She's sleeping, been sick with fever. Wake her up. The moment balanced on a knife's edge. 4 guns against 1, a cabin full of innocents, and a sheriff who had already decided on murder. Then Samuel's voice cut through the tension like a blade. Uncle Jake, I'm scared. The boy appeared in the doorway, thin, determined, playing the role of his life. Jake's heart hammered as Samuel walked to his side, looking up at the mounted men with the perfect mixture of curiosity and fear that any child might show. These men woke me up, Samuel said. Are they the bad men Mama warned me about? Kellaway stared at the boy, searching for resemblance, for proof of deception. But Samuel had his father's sharp features and lighter hair, different enough for Mary to sell the lie. Your mama? Kellaway pressed. My Aunt Mary. She's putting Emma back to sleep. Samuel's performance was flawless, the desperate intelligence of a child protecting his family. Uncle Jake says bad men sometimes come to steal children in the night. Jake rested his hand on Samuel's shoulder. Go back inside, son. This is grown-up talk. But the boy had already done his job. Kellaway's certainty cracked. The company wanted the Hutchins family, but they couldn't afford to murder a respected rancher's relatives on flimsy evidence. This ain't over, Morrison, Kellaway said, but his threat lacked conviction. Yes, it is. Jake's voice carried finality. You come on my land again without proper warrants, and we'll settle this permanent-like. The sheriff wheeled his horse around, gesturing to his men. They rode out hard, their pride stinging more than their fear, but they rode out. Jake waited until their hoofbeats faded, before allowing himself to breathe. Samuel looked up at him with adult eyes and a child's face. They'll be back, the boy said. Maybe, but not tonight. Mary emerged from the root cellar with Emma, both shivering from cold and terror. Jake helped them back to the house, built up the fire until warmth chased away the chill. Why? Mary asked. Why did you risk everything for strangers? Jake stared into the flames, remembering another night, another desperate family, his own mother, begging for mercy from men who had none to give. Because somebody should have done it for my family once. Nobody did. That winter, Mary Hutchins cooked for the Morrison Ranch. Samuel learned to handle cattle and mend fences. Played with her cornhusk doll by the fireplace, her laughter filling corners that had been silent too long. By spring, Mary had grown strong again. Samuel had grown tall. Emma had grown brave. And Jake Morrison had discovered that a house became a home when it sheltered more than just yourself. They never spoke of leaving. Jake never asked them to stay. Some truths didn't need words. Kellaway never returned. The company found other victims, other scapegoats. The Morrison Ranch prospered under 4 sets of hands instead of 2. Years later, when Samuel Morrison brought his own bride home to the ranch his uncle had left him, he would tell her the story of the night his family found sanctuary in a stranger's barn. How sometimes the most important battles aren't fought with guns, but with the simple decision to open your door when someone needs shelter from the storm. And in the barn where it all began, carved deep in the wooden beam above the door, 3 sets of initials remained. SHEHMH, a testament to the night that changed 4 lives forever, when a rancher chose mercy over safety and found family in the darkness. Stories like this aren't just told, they're felt. If you felt it too, subscribe and stay with us.